Hey, welcome to BIS. This is the Bionicle Inspiration Series where we review the mocks of the community to help you get inspired to build some Bionicles of your own. So, this episode is going to be on animals. Now, this was apparently a bit of a requested episode from some people, so here we go. We've done episodes in the past on Rahi, but this one is going to actually focus more specifically on animals as a whole. So, nothing necessarily that's like a made up animal or anything. It'll be pretty much strictly animals that you would find in our world and not the Bionicle universe. So without further ado, let's get started. The first mock that we have today is by Mr. Patrick Biggs and is called Welcome to Portland. Now, I'm sure you're looking at this and you're like, why is this mock called Welcome to Portland? Why isn't it called Cool Reindeer that's jumping through the sky? And that is a very good question. Apparently, this mock was inspired by a very unique and particular statue that you can find in Portland. So Patrick said on his description on Flickr, I've never felt more at home in my life than I do in Portland. And so for Bricks Cascade 2018, he wanted to build something inspired by his sort of adopted hometown. And apparently this is the big old sign that you can find above the west end of the Burnside Bridge. So yeah, definitely check out the link in the description to this mock, and you can have an additional link in that link to the actual sign. So yeah, really cool and a really great original concept to build a animal, but it's actually technically a sign. An even better idea and concept to build something that's super iconic to you, something that means a lot to you, rather than just building like I want to build a cool animal or something. Why not build something that you have a deeper emotional attachment to, that sort of has a bit more symbolism behind it? I think that's a really clever and unique concept. And speaking of really clever and unique concept, I love what Patrick has done with this base. You know, obviously things are very similar to the actual sign to some degree. He's obviously added a little bit of poetic license and stuff like that, but there's definitely a lot of similarities, and that's really, really cool. So why not do that? You know, why not build whatever mock you want to do, but then build a really cool base with it? You know, break out some of the system parts and see what you can do. Maybe you're building a mock that's set in a sort of post-apocalyptic universe and it's got that sort of vibe going on with it. Maybe you want to add a kind of cool little base or vignette underneath it with some sand and junk and all sorts of things like that to really give it a kind of Mad Max post-apocalyptic kind of vibe. Because let's face it, that's going to turn your mock from a really cool mock to a freaking awesome mock. So one thing that I definitely want to talk about on this mock, now, this is sort of a kind of current trend with Bionicle, kind of with the fact that CCBS as a whole is sort of lessening a little bit. We don't really have a dedicated theme for CCBS nowadays. It's just Star Wars Ultra builds. A lot of people tend to be using system a little bit more in their Bionicle mocks, and that's awesome to see. It's great to see the two parts coexisting as one to make really outstanding things, and this is a perfect example of that. But one thing that people really seem to be honing in on is using various claw pieces, depending on what length they are, as well as the Hero Factory arm parts, to create really organic shapes that are super smooth and very hard to achieve any other way, really. You know, we see this with sort of around the where the neck becomes the body, and we also see this on the base here, sort of around the middle of the body. And yeah, repeating them and layering them in such a fashion like that really helps to create quite a smooth, organic, skin-like texture. Which again, it's fairly difficult to achieve that, and this does it so perfectly and so awesomely. So two really cool things there. One, what a great way to achieve such an awesome, unique texture, and two, isn't it awesome how he's literally just repeating a bunch of the same part. You can go on Bricklink and find some of those parts in, quantities of like 50, 100, even more than that, maybe even 1,000. And, you just Bricklink however many you want in the one color and then layer the crud out of them throughout the mock, and you're going to get some amazing shapes. This only uses a very small amount of these parts. I've seen some people who use these pieces in such a large fashion that it almost takes up maybe 50% of the mock using those parts, and it looks fantastic because you're able to get such an organic looking shape and texture out of it. So I highly recommend doing that because it's such a great technique and it's sort of a bit of a trend these days. So why not give it a go? I'm sure if you bought a bunch of XO4 sets or any sets, because these parts often tend to come in a decent quantity in various sets, why not break them out, get some claw parts, because those come in a lot of different sizes and shapes, as we can see on this mock, and just sort of see what you can do. Another thing that this mock definitely prides itself on is sort of honing in on little details and stuff. We've got various things like the boat studs and dishes and all sorts of other system parts, especially on the head, looking at all these different horns, really embellishing the top there of the antlers. And all the other different system parts, some of these tooth plate pieces there, the Mixel eye, some droid arms, all sorts of different things to create such a beautifully shaped and instantly recognizable head. I think that's such a great design. And I think it's really important to do that, to kind of use certain parts that are, like claws or minifigure hands, droid arms, dishes, boat studs, all sorts of things like that in any Bionicle mock, because again, they create such unique, beautiful shapes. The whole knee joint on both the legs and the back legs, the front leg. Now, do you call on bipedal? Are they bipedal? Am I saying that right? Is that what it is? To Google, let me check. Bipedal. Googling. Bipedal is using two legs to walk. No, the term that I am looking for is quadruped. So when you're making a mock that is a quadruped, has 4 legs / arms, are they legs or arms, or are they all legs, or are they all arms? That's the real question. See, man, this is what we do in the Bionicle Inspiration series. We ask the real questions. Anyway, besides the point, getting off topic, the whole joint there is based around that boat stud part. And I'll put a link up in case you're like, what's a boat stud? And I've seen so many very, very talented mockists, AFOLs, whatever you want to call them, use boat studs on Bionicle mocks. And such a beautiful way to achieve some really great designs. So yeah, look into a bunch of those system parts, because you're able to create a really cool head design with all these different connection points on like droid arms or droid bodies or various different smaller various smaller system parts or boat studs, because you can get some insane stuff out of them. So yeah, look around some of those pieces. Definitely grab some of them when you're planning a new mock and just have them nearby, and then just start experimenting with them, or go, you know what? Maybe I could use this on this bit. Or if you're struggling, go, what is this system part going to do? How can this help me? Why not give it a go? So anyway, that's a fair good amount on Patrick Biggs's mock there. Let us go on to the next mock, which is by Balloon Nom Nom, and is called Wolf. That's it, just Wolf. Just a lone winter-themed mock, as he says. Now, I love this. I think this is a fantastic mock. It uses one of the old Hero Factory 3.0 heads. And for those of you who don't remember, Hero Factory 3.0 was set in the jungle, and a lot of things were very jungle-themed. And Bulk had a wolf head as his sort of mask helmet design, and all the other heroes had various animal-themed helmets, and they all look fantastic. And I think this mock is a great idea. Why not just start with one of the Hero Factory 3.0 heads? They're very animalistic. Why not just instantly translate that into whatever mock you're building? Because as we can see here, that looks so good as a wolf head. It almost seems kind of really obvious when you think about it. You're like, oh yeah, why not use a wolf head as a wolf head? Why limit yourself? Why go like, oh man, I have to be super creative. I have to be a creative genius, Why not just do what's obvious? There's no need to overcomplicate it. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. Just grab the most obvious part and use it. Why not? Don't as great as it is to think outside the box, and I'm not going to sit here going, how dare you? Please, of course, think outside the box. Outside the box thinkers are awesome, and that's what nice piece usages are, is thinking outside the box and trying new things and experimenting. But there is nothing wrong with using something that's really obvious, or the obvious solution, because sometimes people get so caught up in trying to be clever, they forget about the obvious solutions. So in that, it's actually very clever. Or mind games. So yeah, do that. It's a great idea. And isn't it just as cool how the Viking wolf head works so well as a lower jaw for that head? Because obviously that mask was only sort of the top half of the wolf head, not the bottom half. So what a great idea to do that too, to find other parts and see how well they actually kind of flush together. We saw that on the podcast with one of Moko's mocks, where he managed to get 2 parts to just fit so nicely together, even though they're 2 completely separate parts and are not meant to be as one. And yet putting them together, it looks like they're born to be with each other. And this is a perfect example of that. So really, I mean, the only way to ever figure that out is to literally grab 2 random parts, shove them together, and see how it works. There's no method to that madness or whatever. You literally just have to do some trial and error and experimentation. But when you find it, you'll know. And you'll get some really cool results like this, where you go, man, these parts were destined to be together. It's like Infinity Stones. It's great. Now, one thing I also really like about this is the lower legs. I think it's so clever to just simply use those Hero Factory bone limbs. That's it. That's all he's done. No need to overcomplicate it. Boom, done, perfect. You know, it looks so realistic to an actual wolf. It looks incredible. It's fantastic. And yeah, doesn't use too many parts. Simple, beautiful, effective, perfect. That's it. Done. Boom. Great. And so why not try that? You know, again, don't overcomplicate it. Just go with what works. And I think the smoke is a perfect example of that. It's simple, it's effective, doesn't use too many colors, but there's a lot to love about it, and it matches the shaping perfectly. And never forget to do that, by the way. If you're going to build a mock that is an animal based off a real life animal, go research the ever loving heck out of that animal. You know, get a folder on your desktop and save a bunch of different photos of whatever animal you're building. So, in this case, a wolf. Go find photos of wolves. Go find photos of loth wolves. Go find photos of all sorts of other mythological sci-fi reinterpretations of wolves. Go find wolves with like guns on their backs, cool stuff like that, and then scroll through that folder and go, "Ooh, I could build that as a mock," or "Ooh, that one part in this photo kind of looks a bit like this piece. What if I use that part?" And then boop, 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 soon you have a whole mock. How cool is that? So definitely be sure to do that. Take a look at some other images. Take a look at the world around you, and boom, the mock will appear before you. How cool is that? You know, I was going to put a bonus mock in this episode, but I'm not now because I've been rambling. I've been having too much fun talking this episode. So, my apologies. There will not be a bonus mock in this episode, or will they? Alright, so, this next mock. Thank you, Mr. Balloon Nom Nom, for your wolf. Let us move on to the next mock by BioRays called Moose. It's a pretty muscular moose, and its jaw is also movable, apparently, which is really cool. So, isn't this cool? We were talking before about nice part usages. What a great part use to use those Wenua claw sword pieces. Are they swords? Not really swords. Weapon parts as moose antlers. Genius. Utter genius. Fantastic. I love it. Great work, BioRays. An awesome part usage. And another thing that's really cool about this is a great example of using CCBS to create a really great overall frame. You know, you just layered a bunch of different parts, whether they're Bionicle or Hero Factory shells together, and it's a perfect way to not really use a huge amount of parts because, you know, you kind of look around it here, a lot of these parts are decently large. And you know, you can just sort of make that basic frame and then shove armor on top of it, and you end up creating a really realistic looking shape for a moose, or whatever animal you're building for that matter. And I think that's great. You know, you're able to kind of use a bunch of parts that, you know, maybe you otherwise wouldn't use, or, you know, you're able to kind of effectively get the perfect shape that you want, and it not be too difficult because you're just kind of able to shove a whole bunch of different parts together until you get the perfect shape that you're after. I think the better way to explain this, because I feel like I'm not explaining it as as well as it fits into my head. So let me reword what I'm saying. Let's take a look back at Patrick Biggs's mock Welcome to Portland. So a lot of this obviously uses a lot more sort of modern parts and techniques in it, in contrast to the moose that we just saw. But that's sort of besides the point. And I mean, that it is, of course, something to think about. You know, do you want to kind of use some older techniques, older parts, or do you want to kind of go with this sort of modern system, Bionicle, CCBS hybrid kind of design? But, you know, do you. There's no set rules there. You do whatever you want. Besides the point, though, looking at this, Patrick's mock focuses a lot more on using detail. It doesn't, a lot of that detail kind of flows into the overall shaping of the mock. You know, using all those different system pieces and the Hero Factory arms and all that sort of stuff. It's creating such a well-rounded overall shape through the individual details that he uses and, for lack of a better term, the kind of greebling that it has. Even though technically that's not greebling, but a lot of people use it for that, so let's call it greebling. Whereas you look at this mark, and there's a lot less detail. There's a lot less smaller parts used throughout it. A lot of it is larger parts. A lot of it is more CCBS parts and shells and larger pieces that cover up things. But you still get the same sort of vibe, but in a different way, of a well-rounded, well-shaped mock. So I guess when you're building a Rahi, or any mock for that matter, you got to ask yourself the question, you know, do you kind of want to go for a more greebled and detailed overall design, similar to what Patrick Biggs has done, you know, using a bunch of smaller parts to create the overall shape and add in lots of nice little sweet details? Or do you want to go for a bit more of what BioRays has done and just focus purely on using the Bionicle parts and not focusing too much on detail, but really focusing on sort of sculpting an overall shape. I don't know how well I explained that. I feel like it makes sense. I just watched an interview online, Mr. Freddie Prinze Jr., and he is so spiritual. I feel like I am being spiritual now. I don't know. But hopefully that made sense. If it didn't, I guess it's just deciding whatever your mocking style is. How do you want to go? There's no right way to do this. We've seen two fantastic mocks from two fantastic different builders. You can approach it from a third new perspective. Why not? See what you can do. See what happens. So yeah, fantastic mock here from Mr. BioRays. One little detail before we finish, actually. I love the tongue. That's very clever. You just use that one little red part there for the little tongue on the inside. Very clever. And that is it for the 3 mocks we are at. Yeah, alright, very quickly. Look at this mock from J6 Crash. It's called Blue Crab, and this is apparently for Brick Fair. Cute little crab. Why not build a small little guy? Use a Bionicle mask for the shell on the back of a crab. Genius. Genius. What a great way to use masks that isn't for masks. Why not focus on something cute? Why not build something cute like this? Go ahead. Bam. Great mock. Good job, J Crash. Bonus mock was a quick mock. Bam. Alright. Turns out I did get it in. Anyway, that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure, and sometimes people miss this apparently, be sure to check the links in the description for places where you can submit some of your own mocks. Don't be shy. I'm more than happy to put your mocks in the show, but you got to recommend them. So, send them to me, and I'll put them on the list, and maybe they'll come onto the show in the near but distant future. Ooh, exciting. And as well, while you're there, check the links in the description for the mocks that you saw in today's episode, and you can check out some more photos and some more amazing creations from these amazing builders that we've seen today. Hell yeah. Cool. So that's it, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Namaste. I'm going to see you in the next episode. Have fun building. See ya.